Patricia McConnell is one of the most celebrated and famous dog trainer, behaviorist, ideologists that I've ever known of. Patricia, I don't know how I never interviewed you about The Other End of the Leash, your very famous book. But it's almost like when I stepped into this space of being a pet expert, which you only get to be by a lot of practice, right? I thought she's like this icon. She's already there. She's like the tent pole of how to understand a dog when you're training them, particularly if they have a problem. And I regret never having interviewed you about it, but thrilled to meet you through a novel. You've written a novel, Away to Me. And I honestly thought, I'm going to tip my hat to this grande dame of dog training. I'm going to have her on the show out of respect for her. She's this extraordinarily accomplished dog training expert. She's explained dogs to generations of dog trainers. I start your book, Away to Me, and on page one, I'm like, wait a minute, is she a poet? Your description of the natural world in this book, which starts at a sheepdog trial, and immediately there's a murder, and the thriller, murder, mystery, scary part of it is very much woven through the book. But your description of these dogs and this woman and the people around her and who these dogs are and how they came to be who they are, and then the birds and the fields and the trees. I'm just flabbergasted, Patricia. I really, first of all, it takes enormous guts to go from being a celebrated nonfiction author to saying, I'm going to write a book, a complete work of my imagination. And you've done it, and you've done it just you soared as if you had been doing this your whole life and it was in a bottom drawer, but it wasn't. It's very clear you set out at an advanced age in terms of you didn't just get out of an MFA program at Sarah Lawrence where all the kids talk to each other about the book they'd like to write. I just can't. I hope your pride in yourself is gigantic because I just feel awed by your accomplishment and delighted by it. The book was such a good friend to me while I was reading it. I adored it. So we could just end there and just tell everyone, buy Away to Me. It is a treat. But Patricia, talk about what it felt like to go from this woman so highly respected and known, famous as a dog training author to thinking, oh, I'm going to do this other thing. And boy, I could fall on my face. I could fall splat on my face, but I'm doing it anyway. Where'd you get that courage?
First, do I have to talk now? Because my heart is so huge in my chest, sort of blocking my larynx. So, first of all, thank you just for having me on. Thank you for even looking at my book because if you're not in the publishing literary world, it's just not obvious how there is a fire hose of fiction
Yeah.
coming out every hour,
Yeah.
not every day. So
Yeah.
I am so aware that I am this little speck. So thank you for having me on. I am gobsmacked thrilled that you love the book. And I even feel like, oh no, I should say she liked the book, but I think I
No,
can
I loved it. No,
love the
say
book.
what,
Thank
say
you.
that I adored it.
Thank you. So the answer is I, when I retired from seeing clients and speaking around the world, I was in my 70s and I was like, I'm in my 70s. My friends are retired but I wasn't done. And the thing is, I've always loved writing. And the part of the nonfiction books that loved writing the most were the scenes. And I love fiction and I love good writing. And I come to it. My father loved to read. He used to take me into the study and oh, he was so dear. He was often at absent fathers, like grew up in the 50s, right? Of course he was.
Right. Of course.
But he would take me into the study and say, now, I think you're just the right age for
Oh,
this.
wow. Wow.
And I'll never forget, I'm a little off topic if you'll forgive me,
No,
but
no. I think it's important for people to understand how a mature person who's never tried something tries it. So please tell the whole story. It's important.
yeah, thank you.
People will admire your book even more, I think.
Thank you. So not only would he carefully choose books for his three daughters, but I'll never forget. I can see it. I can see the image of the bookcase in the study, and the Green Bay Packers were playing football that afternoon. And this is in Arizona, by the way, not
I
Wisconsin
love
where I
it.
live
That's
now.
quite funny.
And he said, Trisha, he said, books are like treasure chests. You can open them up and they're full of jewels. And each one of those jewels is an experience. And you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere in time. You can go anywhere in space. And I never forgot that. So, and my beloved older sister, who tragically has passed away, was a much beloved and admired poet. So there's this literary thread in my family.
Hmm?
So there's that. But I love to read. I read the only thing I don't read is science fiction. My husband takes care of
Interesting.
that. So our
That's
house
funny.
is
Has it all?
all venues are covered. But so Tracy, I just started playing with this. I literally didn't even know it was going to be published. I just started playing with it.
Wow.
And I just thought, I'm just going to do this for fun. And I had the scene in my head and I just started playing with it. And then it just got more and more engrossing. And I just got really into it. And I've had almost no training as a writer. I took one course in college on creative writing one semester. And I didn't know the craft of writing. And I just got, I want to learn how to do this. And my first drafts were horrible.
Are you sure?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I am. And I'm so grateful. Susanna Daniels worked with me when I first got started, encouraging me and read a bunch of my work. And Kat Warren, who's a brilliant writer, you probably know her book, What the Dog Knows, New York Times
yes.
bestseller. She
Yes.
and I became writing partner friends. And so for the last 4+ years, we've exchanged writing with each other once a month. Um,
Nice.
and I've had so many people help with this book. And I read every book I could read on writing, and I went to 2 writing workshops, and I just got lost in it. I just love it. It's really hard, I think, to write good fiction and really easy to write bad fiction.
That's hilarious. You know what? You're probably right. But to write fiction for people who love dogs and to also the natural world is such an integral, maybe because your sister was a poet and you love words and maybe you just love nature, but there's always when our protagonist who suffers from PTSD, which you let out little by little in a very clever, very writerly way, what it is that has what her triggers are, if you will. It's always the birds and the vegetation and the sky and the moon, these things that just ground her and calm us down as readers because she's dealing with some really intense stuff. And funnily enough, her profession is a dog behavior expert for dogs with problems. And it's so funny because I think, were these Patricia's cases? Probably one of the thousands you had. But she would go back to her office, the protagonist, and she'd have, and then you describe in just a sentence the standard poodle with this problem, the English bulldog with that, the Frenchie with that. And it's, wow, that was your life, your Patricia's life, but it's not in any way, it doesn't feel autobiographical. And in terms of what her PTSD is from, I don't think that's autobiographical. And yet you make it very convincing. But were you ever an abused wife?
I was never an abused wife,
Thank God.
but I do have PTSD. And my farm is
Oh,
my safe space. And I wrote a memoir, The Education of Will. I was raped. I had a man fall from 5 stories and die at my feet. So literally out of the blue, somebody
wow.
fell from 5 stories and landed at my feet and died. And it was not pretty.
Wow.
That changes your brain. I'm so glad there's so much in what you said. So let me start with nature and the book because I absolutely, I'm a zoologist and I love wildlife ecology. I love to be outside. I've always loved it. I've always loved animals, but not just dogs. I'm
Right.
a major birder. We have 7 bird feeders right now. And I live on the farm. And I made an intentional choice in that I was doing something so different, so new and different,
Yeah.
writing fiction, which is, I said, is really, in my opinion, to do it well, I think it's really hard. I have so much admiration for people who are brilliant at it. And I'm happy to say I know nothing about murder. And,
Good.
you know,
And yet
and
you do an amazing job. If somebody just wanted a thriller, but I don't think anybody listening to the show just wants a thriller. Filled, jam-packed with dogs, a variety of dogs, different sort of dogs, dogs with problems, dogs who don't have problems. There's the very old dog who barely ever comes off the couch, and she's just always there in the background, which is just so sweet. The other dogs are barking
Clementine.
and reacting. Clementine, she's there, and there's a kitty. There's a lovely kitty. The animals are in there, and oh my God, the horse. I don't know if on your farm that's very restorative for you, but her relationship with the sheep and particularly with this one horse, and they go forehead to forehead, and all of us who love
Yeah.
horses know about nuzzling their soft muzzle and putting our foreheads on their foreheads, and this huge animal trusting us and leaning into each other. There's just so much about the whole natural world and how it protects this woman. Now, she often has to do her breathing, and I found myself practicing the breathing. I don't have
I love it.
I practice it like you never know, it could come in handy. Breathe, hold. And she uses it often in these scary situations. It makes it very real because it's like this pragmatic way of dealing with really scary, shocking events.
It is, yeah, it was so important to me that this book be real. And I learned how hard that is in fiction to make things seem believable. You'd think it would be easy, but
Yes,
it's not. And one of the reasons I write so much about the land and the trees and the birds is because one of the things I learned about putting people in the scene, which is really important to me as a reader. I really want to escape. I want to be when I watch TV, a movie,
yes,
when I
yes,
read, I want to be there. And one of the things I learned is that, and makes sense because I talk all the time in dog training about how we're so visual, right?
yes,
And dogs are using sound and sense, right? And all kinds of
correct.
other things. And so many descriptions, people describe what they're seeing, but they don't describe what they're hearing. They don't describe what they're
Oh, that's a good point.
right. They don't describe what they're smelling. And
Right.
so one of the things I want to do to put you in the country is describe the soundscape.
Uh,
Um,
That's a really good explanation of that because one of the things I felt free to ask you, are you a survivor of domestic abuse?
Absolutely, yeah.
Only because it's so authentic, but I was hoping it wasn't true, just that you have a good imagination. The same thing with her horrible eating habits, which is so funny because women are not usually depicted as eating only junk food and fast food and being a bit of a slob and not caring what they look like, which I pretty much knew was pretty much probably the opposite of you. But I loved it because it made her kind of endearing and real and not some sanitized version. It was, and she has a
Yeah.
friend, a wonderful friend who's a wildlife rehabber, which is another wonderful little adjunct. Every so often, she's saving a bald eagle or something, just in passing. It's great. There's this sense of people connected to the land and to animals and to dealing with their own mess, if you will, at the same time. I would love to have you read a passage just to give people a sense of, if you will, your writerliness, but also just a sense of what it's like to be in this book, Away to Me. And also, we learn a great deal about sheepdog trials and training and what Away to Me means. And everyone that knows the least bit of things about dogs says, don't have a border collie as a pet. They need a job. So it's great to see them on the job and to see them at these trials, which I didn't know there were so many of, but there are. Just like everything, people like to compete, right? It's just how they measure themselves against a perfection standard or against each other. And there's a lot of that in here. And she's not a genius at it, and she's new to it, and the dog is learning with her. But it makes it so real. She's not the one acing it. The dog, the ewe is a really of a brat of an old lady ewe sheep, and she runs away and ruins the whole thing for them. And it's, oh, is that what happens in the real world? So let's talk about Cisco if you want to set the scene a wee bit. But Cisco is a dog with a problem who she takes on, who is also a through line to the story.
Okay. So I will read, and just as a quick setup, she's been called by the director of her local shelter who she volunteers with serious behavioral problems. And there's a dog there who nobody can handle,
Right.
defensively aggressive, and even though barely able to stand up, but still dangerous. So,
And let me just say, he's been discarded by the side of the road, and he's skin and
yes.
bones, and he won't eat and he won't drink. And they think the kindest thing is to euthanize, but it's still a shelter where they say, but maybe our heroine can, maybe she can find the key that will unlock him, let's say.
Yeah, it's a great shelter, right?
Yeah,
Like so many shelters out there, they are not
yeah,
going to give up on this dog.
that's
So she's standing in a her sheltered area in the shelter away from where the public comes in. And she's standing outside of the kennel. Cisco stood up slowly, rising without moving his head or his feet, as if his torso had been lifted up by a puppeteer's strings. He stared at Chris for several seconds, his hindquarters wobbling, while he attempted to stay standing. His head turned so slowly toward me, it was riveting. But this time his eyes had a spark of light in them. And then again, ever so slowly, he sank his hindquarters into a sit while turning his head back towards Chris. Still sitting, still in slow motion, he turned his head back toward me and looked straight into my eyes. I knew, I just knew he was trying to tell me something. Chris began to walk forward a few steps before I could stop him and said, "Wow, that's the first normal reaction we've ever seen from him." At that, Cisco leapt up and tried to charge the kennel gate, but fell down in a heap. Even lying down, his ruff was up. His eyes were on full forward alert, and his black teeth retracted, emphasizing the size of his shiny white teeth. Chris backed up a few paces, but Cisco continued to growl. Now I had a chance to look at his face more clearly. It radiated pure, unadulterated fear. Dogs who are on offense push the corners of their mouth forward, but dogs who are scared, like Cisco, pull the corners of their mouths back toward their ears. 80 pounds of living weaponry, his face spilling the secret of his fears. All standard behavior for a frightened dog. I motioned to Chris to back up to the door, telling him we'd talk later. Chris retreated to his corner. I sat motionless on the hard floor, trying to figure out what had just happened. Why did Cisco sit down and then look at me so pointedly? I left Cisco's kennel and walked over to talk to Chris. Turns out that it had been Chris himself who found Cisco while driving by, lying like a rag between two warehouses beside the tracks off National Avenue in Milwaukee. Yeah, I didn't even think it was a dog at first. I thought it was maybe an old coat or something someone had tossed out of a truck. But then I saw his ears flick at some flies, so I pulled off the highway and walked over to him. He was so weak at that point, he barely responded when I picked him up and brought him to the shelter. Poor guy. Looks like he might have been a nice dog once.
it's great because a mystery unfolds as to who Cisco the dog is, how he wound up by the side of the road, if in fact he'd ever been by the side of the road, which we begin to question many chapters in. But the thing that's amazing about our heroine is the way she reads faces. And because she has PTSD and she's wary, particularly of men, but just a lot of things in the world, she's learned how to read hard eyes and a hard face. And it comes up periodically that a dog looks right at her and she knows they're trying to tell her something. And we dog people think, oh, yeah, that could certainly be true. But I think, Patricia, a lot of us don't pay close enough attention when our dogs look right at us to tell us something. Now, of course, they're not telling us that someone's a killer and that bad news is around the corner, probably. They're mostly saying, you think we could have that walk anytime soon? But they are looking at us. And when they look at us hard and mean, she reads a lot of people that way. She reads some cops that way. And it adds this element of mystery and doubt throughout the book. Who are good guys? Who are bad guys, right?
And that does come from my work as an animal behaviorist. I truly believe, and I don't know if this is true, but I have this belief in my head that learning to read dogs, which just requires learning to be more observant,
Yeah.
which many of us just we're not. We just our brains are busy. When
Yeah.
you learn to be really observant, which is what every animal behaviorist and top trainer I know, it's like the one thing most people would work on more, that advice for example. I actually had a client. I was doing house calls, right? I'm a woman all by myself. I go into this guy's house,
Yes.
east side of Madison, Wisconsin, And so, yeah, I took a
And
scene
that's in
out of
the
my
book,
life,
and that's was spooky.
and that exactly happened to me.
That there were things in there I thought had to have happened to you, and dogs, individual dogs and their behavior that you understood so well. Besides saying how delicious this book is as an experience, as a ride into another world, I feel like I could find my way into her farmhouse right now. It's
Well,
so
you're
well
welcome.
depicted. Thank you. I think your farmhouse is probably a little nicer than hers. Hers is a
It's a
little
little
shabby.
nicer.
Yeah.
It's a little nicer.
Hers a little shabby, but I just think it's really important, and I'm about 15 years in terms of my career too late to thank you for having started the conversation about paying attention to dogs and understanding them. There's a phrase that is now ubiquitous. Yeah, the emotion goes down the leash. But that was an idea that Trish McConnell came up with. And everyone else just thinks, no, you did not.
Oh, you're so
I think
kind,
you
but I
did.
don't know that I deserve credit for that. I think I stand on so many shoulders. Ian Dunbar, like a million
Right.
years
Yeah.
ago, right? He was so kind to me and so supportive, and I've learned so much. Karen Pryor was amazing, and I could just go on and on, but I just feel like one of many. I'm just one of many people who I consider my heroes who've
Yes.
done amazing work. Yeah, I have no idea where that phrase and that thought first came from. I
But
doubt it was me. Again, I'm just one of many people who have been trying so hard to improve the relationships between people and
yes.
dogs. They are our best friends, and we owe them, in my belief, sometimes a lot more than we give them.
And we have to learn how to understand them. And so this
Yes.
book is full of misunderstood dogs, at least for clients. And Cisco certainly had a very rough ride before he winds up where he is. And then there's a setback. And so then he has to be re-counter conditioned. But they're all things that we could learn from. Baby steps in helping a dog get over their own phobias and their own PTSD and walking the walk with them and understanding that our behavior and our feelings affect them a lot. So these dogs pick up on her feelings a lot, and she depends on that. She knows that is the case, so she doesn't poo it. Some of us do. She's Jack's, Cisco's quite, and Jack, her other dog, are quite the heroes. Jack finds Cisco. It's one of those, Lassie, Timmy's down the well. And I'm like, oh my God, Jack's saying Cisco's down the, I'm going to take you to where he is. And a couple of times he alerts to something and she's, oh, knock it off. And she puts him on a leash. And I'm like, oh no, oh no, he's going to, she shouldn't take him away. He wants to tell her something. It's great. There's a whole,
Right. Hasn't she ever read a murder mystery before?
oh, that's
Doesn't she
so
know this
funny.
is a breadcrumb?
A breadcrumb, not to mention, and not a red herring, actually. And also the fact that she knows dogs, if they look right at her and tell her something, for heaven's sake, if he's sniffing heartily and not following her command, there's something up. But she's
And
distracted.
and you're bringing up something that you've referenced before that I love about Maddie. By the way, writing about Maddie was one of the best parts of writing this book because I knew who she was, I knew the demographics, right? She was
Right.
described, but it wasn't until I kept working on the book and writing through it and what would Maddie do? What would Maddie do? Tracy, it was like I don't know if anybody has this experience anymore, but my dad was an amateur photographer, and so I would go in his darkroom and watch photographs
Yes.
develop.
Well
So
said.
there's just white space, and then
Yes.
this thing. So Maddie developed for me, and I'm so fond of her now. But I wanted to make Maddie human, really human,
Yeah.
and no matter how good a behaviorist, a trainer, a dog lover, a dog owner you are, we're all human.
And we have our frailties and our foibles, but we want to do well and we want to do well by our dogs. Patricia, we've run short of time, but I just can't say enough about Away to Me being just the most riveting book, the most transporting book, and that you've done this as a virgin novelist is, I'm just awestruck, truly. And I just, please, can you write another one soon? That's all
I've
I'm
actually
saying.
started.
Oh,
It's
good.
if I live long enough, there'll be a trilogy. So first is Away
You're
to
going to
Me,
live.
second is Come By, and then there's That'll Do.
And those are all the words that are used in the sheepdog training, which we learn. And Maddie learns as she's going along. Thank you for this beautiful book. You're going to live more than long enough. Take Fatty 15. I've just learned about it. Take Fatty 15. It's really good for your brain cells. Thank you, and come back soon. Maybe you should just come back and we should just talk about dog training. That wouldn't be the worst idea.
I
Take
would
care.
come.
And
Thank you. I would come back anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
you'll be so welcome. Bye.